Parashat Beha-alotcha. What's happening in Israel now is a great deal of excitement surrounding the Rabbanut Harashit, the elections for the chief rabbi. And what really is the most important task of the chief rabbi? What is the most important characteristic necessary for the chief rabbi? And I believe the answer lies very much in the opening Rashi of this week's Torah portion of Beha-alotcha. Let me first begin by saying that the chief rabbinate is not built into Jewish life. We didn't have a chief rabbi, lahavdil, the way the Catholics have a pope. There were community rabbis, there were city rabbis, individuals picked their own rabbis. There was always a number of different paths, and people had the right to choose. Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim chayim, these and those are the words of the living God. It was around the 15th century when Mediterranean Jewry, rooted in Constantinople, decided somehow on a chief rabbi for the Mediterranean Jews, the Sephardi Jews, basically. And this continued through to the British Mandate. And in 1921, Rav Kook, under the British Mandate, was appointed the chief rabbi of Israel. And the chief rabbi, first and foremost, is an ambassador to the world. And from that perspective, he's closest to the Kohen Gadol, to the high priest. The high priest was a very important religious functionary, served in the sanctuary and served in the holy temples. And there's a fascinating opening to Parashat Beha-alotcha. Parashat Beha-alotcha, Book of Numbers, speaks about the kindling of the menorah. And Rashi is apparently troubled. The menorah is discussed in Parashat Terumah in the book of Exodus when the sanctuary is discussed. The menorah was one of the most beautiful accoutrements in the sanctuary and then in the temple. What does it have to do with Beha-alotcha, the book of Numbers? And Rashi asks, we mentioned the census, and within the context of the census, mentioned the princes of the tribes, each of whom brought an offering at the dedication of the sanctuary. And that was the end of last week's biblical portion of Naso. And then the Midrash says, but the children of Aaron HaKohen HaGadol felt left out. The princes of all the tribes brought their offerings at the dedication, but they, the Kohanim, did not. They were not asked to bring anything. And then God says to them, Shelecha gedola mishalahem. Your offering is greater than theirs. You are to kindle the menorah. Now, when you think about it, what's the big deal of kindling the menorah? It takes place very early in the morning. There's no audience. There's no fanfare. There are no applause. No one even notices who does it. What does that mean, to kindle the menorah? And I would like to suggest that the menorah represents light, ki ner mitzvah v'torah or. candle is commandment and Torah is light. There were two marvelous furnishings in the Sanctum Sanctorum, the Holy of Holies. The Aron, the Holy Ark, that housed the tablets of stone, the Torah. The Torah meant for the Jewish people, the Torah which was to make the Jewish people a holy nation, and the menorah that also stood for the Torah. But it was the light of Torah and the warmth of Torah. The light of Torah which extended outwards, beyond the sanctuary, even beyond the Jewish people. The menorah brought Torah to the world. This was the task of the Kohen, Jewish people called Mamlechet Kohanim, a kingdom of Kohen priest teachers. As the Seforno explains it, to teach all of humanity. The chief task of the Holy Temple, eventually, is that all the nations will rush to it. From Zion shall come forth the word of the Lord. From Jerusalem, the word of God, to all the families of the earth who must be blessed by the moral and humanistic teachings of Torah. That's the Kohen Gadol, the high priest. That's the task of kindling the menorah. That's the task of the chief rabbi. So what kind of individual must he be? He must be an individual who loves Jews and loves all of humanity. He must be an individual who is sensitive to the fact that Torah is the moral teaching meant for all of humanity. He must take major issues confronting us today, like women and their rights to divorce, and loving the stranger, including the convert, and make these principal, important, significant in modern Israeli life. He must make the rabbinate user-friendly to every Jew, even those who are non-Orthodox Jews, even those who are completely secular Jews. He must even make Judaism user-friendly to Gentiles. And it seems to me that the choice we make is a very fateful one in these very fateful times. Shabbat Shalom.